And no, I'm not here to say that storytelling doesn't matter. So let's just dead that assumption right now. Storytelling absolutely matters. It's so important, and we'll speak on that importance. It's also okay to acknowledge, though, before we get started, that some people, it's not about the story. It really is just about the product. Sometimes a sneaker just speaks to them because it looks amazing, from how it's constructed, the colorway, and how they envision wearing it with their own individual personal style. And I know that may rub some people the wrong way, but please keep in mind, someone being interested in sneakers and being within the culture, it's not a monolith, okay? No one has to approach sneakers the exact same way that you do, okay? Two things can be true at once. That's not a respected thing in sneakers, but two things can certainly be true at once. I actually think that storytelling is extremely important in 2025. And I say that because when you have so many options in the market for product, you as a brand have to work even harder to sell a consumer on why they should choose you. Stories connect, they resonate, stories empower, they embolden. They make us feel like we're not alone because we're able to see ourselves in them. They're passed down from generation to generation in many families, and from generation to generation, quite possibly in other lanes such as sneakers. It's sometimes looked at as something sacred, and I know you know exactly what I mean when it comes to sneakers. But, hot take alert, storytelling may have become too much of the identity of so many releases and collabs in 2025. Because one thing seems to have been forgotten. Who cares about the story if the sneaker is still just a mediocre product? The product still has to stand on its own and either wow people or fulfill a need so well they buy it.
That maybe I can help the next kid coming up after me. Number one point is the product. I see all these like cut corner type of things saying, hey, you should shoot content for your brand like this, or you should be doing it like this, and you should post like this, or, you know, you should use this facility because they're the same ones that like Louis Vuitton uses and everything like that. It starts with the product. If you have a good product, you will go far. If you have a good product and you stand on something, you will go far. Anybody that supports John Geiger, buys from the brand, they'll tell you quality, integrity, being different in footwear. That's what we stand on. There's no one going to tell you anything different. That's because of the product.
So I had to go ahead and include this recent John Geiger rant. He said he's going to start calling them the JG or the John Geiger rant. And I hope he continues to speak out. I mean, he's such a respected and successful voice within sneakers, independently, I might add. And what he said, at least to me, is spot on, right? You can have great packaging, you can have an amazing story, amazing marketing behind it, a great consumer experience, which we've spoken about, some not being so great in recent releases, even if they have a lot of hype behind them. But at the end of the day, that product should still be able to stand on its own because it really is just that well designed. And I think that's also one reason why John is so respected in this game. You hear consumers rave about his pairs. And if you guys remember, I actually ranked them pretty high. That 004, I ranked rather high within my personal 2024 top 10 sneakers of the year to release. And fun fact, I actually have a surprise from him. I have no idea what's in the box. We will unbox that together, maybe in a short and then on here in an upcoming video. So please be sure to stay tuned, because I think when it comes to stories and a product, I think a story can certainly complement a really well-designed pair. I think a story can elevate a sneaker if there's more beneath the surface, right? At first glance, you may not really truly understand everything. And then I think sometimes stories are doing a lot of heavy lifting for a sneaker that it just seems like it's thrown together. And consumers aren't dumb. I think consumers can really sniff out when it feels like the story is doing the heavy lifting and there's a lot of reach behind it. Because this is something maybe a lot of people don't want to admit, but I will. When you see a sneaker, right, you're just walking around, you're going about your everyday life, there's no billboard that details and spells out the story behind that shoe, Right. You don't see all of the marketing necessarily. If you're just going about your day-to-day life, you're at work, you're in the grocery store, you're on the subway, you're moving through life. The shoe itself is what has to actually make people stop in their tracks and maybe then ask you about the shoe. And then you dive into the story. So if the product isn't really doing that, the story becomes kind of, I don't know, just a moot point. Let's go to another highly respected name, legendary name within sneakers, Jeff Staple, because he made a few comments recently, some posts, and I really want to touch on those because I think it helps to drive the message home and far better than maybe I could just by myself. Again, legend in the game. So he said culture fatigue is real, brands are over collabing, and I know that some of you have felt that way too, right? That it does feel like we get a collab every 3 business days. I've been into sneakers, right? Started collecting them when I was in middle school. I don't ever recall this, first off, in terms of collabs, it just wasn't like that, right? There wasn't a collab dropping every 3 business days. We had a lot of signature sneakers. Right? But we did not have this. And something else he stated that I think is really, really important. He said it's okay to focus on your own DNA for a minute talking to the brands. Listen, there was a time when brands delivered their best work. They wowed consumers with in-house product. And I actually just want to take a moment to give the Ja 3 its flowers because that shoe feels like a special moment right now. I joked and said it's really giving me like raptor energy because I love Jurassic Park. But it is. I love to see the excitement around it. And when you see what Nike basketball is doing with the Ja 3, the A1, and the Sabrina 3, I think that's special. I think they are really tapping back into being who they are and delivering really well on their own signature products. Like, who can argue with that? Because when we talk about too many other factors being involved with releases, I start to look at it like this, right? You have an artist and they put out a really great album, but it has tons of features on it. And you start to sit back and ask yourself, like, what, were they that good on the album, or was it just everyone else? So to close this out, Jeff said, culture needs more space to breathe. And I know some may take that as, oh, well, let's just like really stop, put a halt to collabs. I personally don't take it that way. I think the collaborations being very intentional and them feeling just really organic, I think that maybe is the best route to go down. Because some of the collaborations we've seen, right? One, collabs bring in consumers that may haven't, maybe they don't have a certain model, a certain silhouette, a certain brand in their closet at all. It can be refreshing. It can open a door. It can cause someone to pivot, right? Let's take a look at J-Tips and Saucony. I would also say Bad Bunny and Adidas. And I would even throw Brooks into this conversation. Many of you applauded seeing something different on my channel that you may not normally see on your timeline in the Brooks Cascadia 1 in the Moonbeam colorway. And funny enough, I just recently watched again Weartesters video on the Staple and Brooks Adrenaline GTS 4 video, and there was a comment that stood out to me, more so the response by Chris and the team, because someone wanted to see more Brooks reviews, right? Maybe that's what they're really interested in when it comes to sneakers. There's no monolith of what someone should be if they're into sneakers, but unfortunately they had to respond with, do you want the channel, to die? And, creators have to walk this very fine line of what will actually, keep people's attention and garner reviews versus maybe what still has substance but won't get that same attention. Again, it is a very, very fine line that has to be walked. But, I will join in with so many of the comments in that video just to say, listen, Chris, Mrs. Nightwing, we really do appreciate any and everything you guys bring to the platform. It doesn't matter. I promise you, we are tuned in. And I said in a recent video, that was one of the standout pairs for me in 2025. Jeff Staple collaborating with Brooks on this Adrenaline GTS 4, with it still being in the signature Staple colorway. And so did you kind of peep the little Easter egg in the back here? So that's the next pair I'll unbox here on the channel. And, there have certainly been some pivots in 2025 and, fun ones by choice like the Asics Gel 1130. But then also just some by way of gratitude. And, I'm forever grateful for that. I really, really am. If there's ever a pair that happens to be, on my radar and then I'm able to have it based on the generosity or just the kindness of anyone, that never goes unnoticed. I really thought about it that in 2025, I'm buying less and I'm still blessed. And that's why I will continue to be intentional with giving away so many of my sneakers as I'm paring down my collection, because that energy always returns back to you. Oh, and one last thing I noticed, the other day as I was heading out to go run. When you look at performance sneakers, right? All too often, let's just say running, they don't have these crazy in-depth stories, right? They deliver on the design, the function, the tech. Maybe they're trying to target a specific runner based on your foot, based on the type of running that you're doing, the type of runs you want to shoot for. And that's it. And the product ends up selling itself because of its function or because it just looks good. I just found that interesting. I really did. So please go ahead and share your thoughts below on storytelling in 2025, where, you see it. Where do you see it heading? How do you feel about it right now? What was the last shoe that sold you on just the design? It had nothing to do with the story. And what's the last shoe also where maybe the story sold you a little bit more than the design of the shoe itself? Maybe you would have completely walked away from the shoe if it wasn't for the story. Please go ahead and share your thoughts below. I really appreciate you tuning into this video. As always, act your age, not your shoe size. Peace.